Time to go through my scraps so I can make some more scrappy blocks. Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be making some scrappy trees and some wonky trees. So I just kind of went through my bin and I found some greens that I liked and then some stuff for background fabrics. So the first thing I want to do is just a simple triangle tree, kind of like a Christmas tree. And there's different ways that you can make them, and I'm just going to fold my piece of fabric in half and just kind of cut a random triangle. There is no rhyme or reason to it, no specific size, just going to cut it out, and that's going to be my tree. And then I have a piece that I chose for my background, and I'm going to lay this on there. Like I said, there's no measurements here, it's just make it up as you go. And then with my tree piece lying on there, I'm just going to take another ruler and line it up so that I can cut my background fabric. That's just so that I can get the correct angle on it, no other reason than that. And then I'm just going to flip my tree portion over and sew that right sides together with a 1/4 inch seam. Once that is done, I'm ready to cut my next side. So again, I'm just going to lay it on top of my background fabric. I'm sure there's probably a much better way to do this, but this is just me winging it here. And I'm just going to lay it on there to make sure that I get enough for seam allowances all the way around. No measuring, just cutting. And then again, just using my ruler and my tree as a guide there so that I get my angle correct. And then just make a cut, and we're going to move out our center piece here because this is no longer needed. This is going to be the other side of our tree block. So I'm just going to do the same thing as before. I'm going to just kind of figure it out, making sure that I have enough for seam allowances all the way around. Lay those right sides together and then sew at an angle. And you'll see that top piece is sticking out a bit there, but that's fine. We're just going to trim that off once we've sewn it. So once I've sewn that 1/4 inch seam, I'm just going to trim off that extra with my rotary cutter, and then I'll go give it a good press. And as you can see, nothing is lining up and nothing is square, but that's okay. We're going to basically finish that up later on. But I am going to straighten out this bottom here. That's just going to make putting on the trunk a lot easier if we do have a straight edge to work with here. So once I've trimmed that up, I'm just going to go find some fabric that I have planned for my trunk. And I'm just going to cut a random piece here. I have no idea what width I wanted. I'm just going to cut what I think I want and then go with it. And you can always trim off if you don't want it at that wide. So it is better to cut it a bit wider. That way you can trim off if you need to. And then I'm just going to grab some background fabric. And again, I'm not really measuring here. I'm just going to make sure that my pieces are long enough so that I can sew that to my tree. And this is all going to be good. So I'm just going to sew these two pieces onto my trunk, and then I will straighten that all up, and then we'll sew that all together. So once I have my trunk built, you can see my pieces are sticking out way further than they need to be. But I'm just going to somewhat center the trunk on the bottom of my tree. It does not have to be centered. You can kind of offset it. But there it is. It's all done, and now we're ready to square it up. And this is where I'm going to find out what size my block is. And I ended up trimming this block to 5.5 by 6.5 inches. Not very big, but like I said, these are just going to be scrappy blocks, and they are going to go in my scrap quilt. So it's fine if they're not very big. All right, now I'm going to show you a different method of making these. I have two pieces of fabric here. They're the exact same size. They're contrasting colors, and we're going to layer them and making sure that everything's lined up. We're going to cut these at the same time, and then this way we can make 2 tree blocks using these fabrics. You just want to make sure that you're not putting your ruler all the way to the corner there. You need enough room for seam allowance. Otherwise, you're going to end up losing the bottom point of your tree. So just laying it at whatever angle you want, you just make a cut, and then we're going to make the second cut. And this time we need to make sure that we are not going to go too close to that corner or too close to the top there because we need seam allowance space everywhere. So we're just going to lay it up again, picking the angle that you want, nothing precise, just whatever looks good to you. And then once those cuts are made, we're just going to switch these fabrics out so that you have the different color background and different color trees. And they're going to be reversed. And then apparently I forgot to separate those two pieces, and I need this one for this block. So once you've switched those out, we're just going to lay them right sides together and sew with a 1/4 inch seam. And this is where I kind of did it the wrong way. I should have done the right corner piece or the right side of the block and the tree first and then the other side, but this still ended up working out. Basically, like I said, these are improv blocks. I just kind of wing it, and it is what it is. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, just lay those right sides together and sew them together, and then we're going to trim off all the extras later. And as you can see, it still worked out. I do have that little opening on the top there, but that's fine. I'm going to trim them off anyway. These are looking a little tall and skinny, but you can make these blocks as big as you want or as small as you want. You can make little short stubby trees or tall skinny ones. It's up to you. So I'm just going to do the same thing as before, find background fabrics and cut pieces big enough to fit in there. And then I'm going to cut some trunks, and again, just kind of winging it. I don't really have a plan here. I'm just kind of going with the flow. And you know what? Honestly, sometimes these are my favorite blocks to make the ones where I don't have to worry about precise measurements and precise everything. Just go with it and have fun and do what you want to do. And if you're enjoying this video so far, I would really appreciate if you would hit that like button. It really helps boost my videos to other viewers and helps grow my channel, and I really appreciate that very much. Thank you so much to everyone who has supported my channel and continues to do so. And I'm just going to continue cutting my pieces here, and as you can see, I am not measuring anything and none of my pieces really line up. But in the end, it will all line up when I square it up. Once I have my trees sewn to my trunks, then I can just square up my blocks. And this one, I decided I wanted my tree trunk to be a little bit shorter. So I made sure that when I did my trimming that I left more space on the top. And then this other one, I wanted the trunk to be a little bit longer. So I just made sure that when I was squaring it up, I positioned my ruler in a way that would leave my trunk longer. And there you can see. And I think this would look really cute in Christmas fabrics. You can make like a table runner or make bigger blocks and even make a quilt. And now moving on, I'm going to make some different trees. So I cut two pieces of fabric. One is a 5 by 5 square and the other one is a 3.5 by 5 inch rectangle. And then I just found some background fabric that I liked, and I cut some squares and drew a diagonal line on the back side of them so that I can do a sew and flip on all the corners so that I can make my trees look a little bit more rounded and not so squarish, because we don't want our tree to look all rectangle and boxy. We want it to be more rounded. For the 5 inch square, I cut my pieces at 2 inches, and then for my other one, I cut them at 1.5. I ended up changing my mind on this. I should have made my squares smaller because now it looked too much like a diamond and I did not care for it at all. So I just decided to take my ruler and then just trim off a little bit all the way around. I did about a quarter of an inch at a time because I wanted to see what it would look like. And then I just kept going until I got it to the size that I wanted it. And then for my rectangle piece, I didn't want to cut off any on the sides, so I decided to just cut off about a quarter of an inch on both the top and on the bottom. Just that way, then everything would be the same and it wouldn't look all weird. And now I'm ready to make some trunks for these guys. So I just found some different fabrics that I wanted. And because my tall or my narrow tree, my rectangle one, I would like a little skinnier trunk. I cut this one at 3/4 inches. That way I'll end up with a 1/4 inch trunk. And then for my other one, I figured a bit of a wider trunk would look good. So I just cut it. And I did cut these trunks longer. I figured I can always adjust it later on when I'm squaring up my blocks. And then I could decide if I want a shorter trunk or a longer one. So again, just finding some background fabric and then just kind of haphazardly cutting things and hoping that I don't cut too terribly wonky. And here I did use my ruler to make sure that I centered it because I wanted my trunks to be more in the center and not off center with these because that would look really weird if the trunk was beside the tree part. At least I think so. So once this is done, I'm ready to square these up. So all I'm going to do is just trim off the sides there and make sure that they're even with the top portion of my tree. And then here I ended up cutting some strips of the background fabric because I figured I would just build around it. And when I squared up my block, I ended up deciding to make my little chubby tree a little bit shorter than my other one. So that one would be taller. And then this is what my plan was originally, but I ended up changing my mind because I remembered that I made a house block using this background fabric. So I thought, why not make these trees and put them onto this one because these are going to be going into my Scrappy quilt anyway. So I just dug through my stash and made sure that I had some more of this green fabric because, that's my grass. And I wanted that to all match up nicely. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to line my grass up and then sew these blocks. And then I'm just going to have to trim off that top part on that long one. But I don't want my trees too far away from the house. So I just kind of laid it on there to decide how close I wanted it. And then I figured I would just trim off of my house block if I needed to. And I did want them closer, just not that close. So I ended up trimming off about 1/2 inch of my house block there. I figured that would bring it a little bit closer, but not too close. And then I'm just going to sew these on together and square everything up once it's done, and then I will show you. All right, I have those all sewn on there and it's all squared up. So that one is ready to go into my scrap quilt. And then here are my other trees that I made today. And as you can see, that green is the same as my grass. But I was thinking I could probably put some sashing around these blocks and then just add them to the bottom of that house and tree block. But I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do. I'll figure that out once I get to putting this quilt all together. And I hope you stick around and consider subscribing to my channel if you are interested in seeing what this quilt is going to look like once it's all done. But that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for stopping by, and until next time.